Hello and welcome to Tuesday Tips with Pastor J.B. Whitfield, a weekly conversation where we can gain leadership, wisdom, and insight to take us to the next level. Gather your team around so you don't miss this week's tip. We're back.
We're back.
I got my wife back with me with a battle. Wait a minute. Now, these last several episodes, we've been talking about M&M, marriage and ministry. Belinda has been sampling. I've got my lovely wife. Hopefully it's gonna show up on the screen. This is Pastor Belinda Watson, my smoking hot wife, but my beautiful wife. She's been sampling the M&Ms while we've been doing our episodes. So, what do you give a vote for one of them?
I really like the fudge brownie. It's very good.
That's good.
I haven't tried the pretzel yet, though.
You haven't tried the pretzel. So she's given a vote for fudge brownie. We've been talking about marriage and ministry, hence the M&Ms, and we talked about a little bit of how we sat under men and women of God that has helped us in marriage and ministry, how working at marriage and ministry is a job to work at it. The enemy wants to destroy marriages. We've seen that. You have to be intentional. We did a whole episode on communication. Oh boy, you're just flowing right along. We've done a whole episode on communication, how we didn't obviously communicate what we were going to say during this episode. She's just going rogue. People, she's going rogue.
Give me some more M&Ms.
But we talked about communication, how vitally important. I think it's one of the key things in marriage and in ministry. The second one we talked about was boundaries. Go back and look at those episodes. Boundaries in marriage and ministry. Those are so important because we've seen many ministries fall or marriages fall because the boundaries weren't set in place. I want to talk a little bit about keeping family life in priority. And that can be difficult sometimes to prioritize all that. And that's where it becomes a battle of the sexes. Now, this is a game we've played a long time ago. A battle of the sexes. How much do you really know about the opposite sex? How much do you really know? But when you're looking at keeping the family in priority, when you mix church, work, ministry, and family, it can become a blur because you can stay busy let me read some statistics. According to a study conducted in the 2000s, 90% of pastors work between 55 and 70 hours per week. Now, that's just they work. That don't include all the extra phone calls. 90% of pastors feel fatigued and worn out and consequently too exhausted to invest in their kids and too tired to help with daily household chores. 80% of ministry spouses feel left out and unappreciated by their church and possibly their spouse. Wow. So given those statistics, we have got to guard and protect, and it's a tricky balance. Whenever and I think there's a lot of perspectives in ministry. Even when we were traveling full time, and I know you have a story that you want to talk about perspective that you want to share, but even when we were traveling full time in ministry, and we were getting ready to go on a trip, the perspective of what we're doing, why we're doing it, and keeping a balance in our children's life. I remember early on in ministry, we both worked vocational jobs and were in ministering. God was able to help us keep a priority, and I did not have a multi-million-dollar job that was bringing in whenever we didn't have insurance and some other stuff for a long time. But I remember when we first started to have children in ministry, we made a priority of the family life that you were not going to work. You quit a secular job, so to speak, secular. It wasn't doing anything bad, but a job to be home with our kids. We made family a priority. Our perspective was our kids were going to come first.
And that was my specific choice. There's nothing wrong with other women having jobs and careers. So that was my choice.
That was your choice.
To do.
And I'm not saying there's anything wrong, but God honored that, and that was a perspective that we looked at a priority of keeping a family life our priority. What's another perspective that we can look at in ministry of keeping our family life a priority? Okay, I've got her thinking now. I've got her thinking now.
Of keeping a family like well, you know, you have heard the term PK.
Yeah.
PKs, preacher's kids. And exactly what you said from those statistics, that's why a lot of preacher's kids are the troublemakers of the entire church, because they're not invested in balanced.
Yeah.
So, one of the things that we really made sure of is that we invested spiritual, biblical characteristics in our children.
Sure.
And kept that a priority.
And that's why
I answered your question.
I don't think you answered my question, but
for.
I was going for more that would get us in
literal,
to the literal side. So I didn't communicate to her what I was wanting. It was that Mad Gab game.
So we're
wah,
going
wah, wah,
towards
wah, wah.
this.
We're talking about the battle of the sexes. Sometimes in a relationship, keeping family life a priority, there's that struggle of guys want to do what the guys want to do and the perspective that the guys have. Girls have a different perspective. How well do you know each other? Looking at that, and even in how we do things, I don't know if you're going to get to your story and fit your story in there, but that's what I was leading to, was your story about perspectives.
Okay. Since you put it that way, my story about perspectives.
They're going to do a lot of editing on this episode.
Well, it's good to see people mess up. Well, one of the things that we were doing is we have a young daughter and a young son. I think Grant was probably 6 and Courtney was 3. And we were getting ready to go on a ministry trip. The next day, we had put them to bed, and we were going up to our bedroom to get our clothes packed. I had all of my clothes laid out on the bed, which was at that time a water bed, which I miss tremendously. I love my water bed. So, and he liked to see what clothes I was wearing so he could kind of match me in a way. So I had to leave them out on the bed. So he started putting his clothes all along the floor, laying them out so he could see every outfit.
My outfits.
So I had to get to my closet, which was on the other side of the water bed. And, you know, we had had a long day, put the kids to sleep. We're packing the night before. We have to leave super early. So stress is starting to go boop, 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 ratchet it up a little bit. So I needed to get to my closet, and I saw little spaces of the floor that were left that his clothes weren't on. So I, like a graceful gazelle, leapt from space to space so as not to mess his clothes up. This is my perspective, to get to my closet. He happened to walk in and see me from his perspective, stomping all over his
She
clean,
walked
nice
all over my clothes I was laying out to pack. So being the mature man in the relationship.
Do you want to say what you did, or do you want me to say it?
Go ahead. You say it so much better than I do.
So as I, gazelle-like, made it to the other side to my closet, I turn around to see him jumping up on the waterbed, stomping all over
I was
my
a gazelle.
clothes.
I was a gazelle.
He was Bigfoot, and he was stomping on my clothes. And I remember, and this is another communication thing coming up here in a minute, I remember just looking at him, and I looked down at my clothes, now shoved in the crease of the waterbed, all wrinkled, and I knew it was time to walk away. And I just left the room. That's my story.
After much counseling later and understanding of the perspective, I did not see her gazelle-like go across my clothes and hit the tiny spots between my shirts and pants. I saw her walk across. So I just, in turn, I didn't turn the other cheek. I lashed out.
Stomped on my clothes on the water
and I
bed.
don't think I wasn't up there just stomping up and down.
That reminded me of something else, too. When I came back in later, I did look at the waterbed, and my clothes were still shoved down in the crease.
What?
And I remember saying, at least you could have pulled them out of the cracks of the waterbed.
Needless to say, the ministry we were getting ready to go to was
for
phenomenal.
families.
It was for families, and it was phenomenal. But what you got to realize is, again, we go back to that. We were tired. We hadn't set the right boundaries that we had set on us.
Exactly.
There was a battle of the he said, she said, she did, we did, what we meant. But we did not protect that. And the enemy took advantage of that, Pastor
We
Glenda.
fell right into the hands
We
of the
fell
enemy.
right into I reacted instead of responded, instead of asking a question, which is Pastor Whitfield has taught us how as leaders to ask questions like, why did you step all over my clothes to get to the closet?
Which I would have said, I leapt like a gazelle gracefully across them.
It's a funny story now. At the time, it wasn't quite so
at the
funny
time.
on either side of us. But it was something we had to work through. It's that
did.
battle of the
had to
sexes. It's that
communicate.
marriage and ministry.
We had to ask forgiveness,
We
like
had
we
to ask
talked about
forgiveness.
earlier,
Yep.
too.
Yep. We had to ask forgiveness when we talked about communication. We had to, and that's something, keeping the family life a priority. At that point, we were traveling about 6 months out of the year. There were times that we'd only sleep in our bed maybe one night every 30 days, and we were on the road with 2 little ones. Not something I'd always recommend. That was something I had to, you've heard Pastor Whitfield say this, I was more with a ministry affair, meaning he put the ministry before his wife. I would sometimes put work before my wife and family, and that was something I was growing in during that time, was to be able to balance that, be able to allow those things to happen.
And it all comes back to perspective. Like we
It is a
talked
perspective.
about. We have different perspectives.
We do. It's also, you got to learn, I think another thing you need to, and this may be a hard for people in general, is learning the art of saying a sweet no. You know, we just got through doing a book, a study with our staff called Essentialism. And in ministry and marriage, you can try to do so many things. And they used an example of a round circle with all these little lines coming out of it, just very little, because you as an individual are working on so many different things that you're only getting a little bit done in each area. And an essentialist, when you learn to say no to some of the things in a sweet way, not in a, no, I ain't doing that, in a sweet way, they showed a circle of an essentialist who isn't doing everything, and that circle's there with one long line that has reached the next level, the goals, the heights, the desired results, as Pastor teaches on creating constructive change for desired results, why we change. When we do those things, then I think we can achieve more in ministry.
It's kind of like doing a God thing, something God has specifically told you to do, and not every good thing that comes along.
But it's every good and perfect thing. No, it's every God thing. That's good for somebody right there, giving that wisdom. What else? We're kind of wrapping up our marriage and ministry arc of our episodes. Is there anything else you want to, Pastor Belinda, say? Nothing about me, of course, but to those that are listening, to those that are watching, that has helped you in marriage and ministry?
Well, I think it's what, when we prepared for this, we looked at the things that helped us the most. And I think the biggest thing, number one, is asking God for help and direction, but communicating with each other.
Go back and review.
That's the big thing, yes. And setting the boundaries for the protection. So if you're struggling right now, go back to the basics. Ask God for help. We all know to do this. Sometimes we get so busy doing all that we're doing that we forget to do it. So go back to the basics. Ask God for help. Do it together as a couple. And just pencil in, schedule some time to meet together and intentionally talk about those areas where you feel like they're chaotic right now.
Yeah. I would even say bring young couples or even older couples, because 2 or 3 things happen. Young couples think they can tackle and take on the whole world, and they need to have a balance on that. Older people say they become so set in their ways they're not open to change. Find that right ministry couple or that right person that can come alongside you and help you see what you can't see. To help, we've had people talk into our lives, some things that we've needed to do, and we've helped other people come alongside them to help them in marriage and ministry. Because again, it's work. Something I wrote down when we were studying this and at the very beginning, for you leaders out there, for you in ministry out there, I'll say this: marriage is your first ministry.
Exactly.
Yeah. And we wrote this down, and we didn't get a chance to say it in any of the episodes, but I want to close in this episode. Don't give your family leftovers. Now, everybody loves leftovers from Thanksgiving dinner somewhat, maybe the day before, but leftovers for weeks after is not something you enjoy. And in marriage and ministry, don't give your family, whether it's your spouse or spouse and kids, leftovers. I think that's crucial and key to balancing marriage and ministry. So open up a new bag of pretzel M&Ms or peanut M&Ms or minty M&Ms or fudge brownie M&Ms. Maybe that's what you need to do. You need to get your whole family together, buy a whole bunch of M&Ms and talk about marriage and ministry and communicate that so that it's not a battle of the sexes. It's not of him versus me.
Different perspectives.
But it's a different perspective, and we can grow and don't do something stupid. And we can set the boundaries, do the communication, and keep family life a priority. That's a key. Because if you're going to, ministry is not a sprint. Marriage is not a sprint. It's a marathon. And if you're going to have the longevity in ministry or in marriage, then you've got to keep God and family a priority.
Spoken very well.
Well, good. So I think we finished this. Don't forget to continue to send in Tuesday tip ideas. Don't forget to continue to let us know how this broadcast is blessing you, how you've benefited, maybe from these episodes or even what you want us to do in some future episodes. Send that in. Also, mark your calendars. October, Lead 23 is coming up. It's in October this year, October 12th, 13th, and 14th, live right here in Clemmons, North Carolina. We want to see as many people as we can in person. We'll have some special guests. There'll be breakout sessions. There'll be a worship time. You'll hear from your coach, Pastor J.B. Whitfield, and grow in ministry. It's been fun, Pastor Belinda, being on Tuesday Tips the last little bit, talking about marriage and ministry. I am one blessed man to be sitting across the table from my wife.
I am one blessed woman to be sitting across the table from my husband.
That we've been in ministry together for 40 years, not here at Agape Faith Church, but traveling, doing ministry together. And I would not want to be doing this with anybody else. I would not want to be doing anything else than what we're doing right now with what God has called us to do and with where our family's at. So thank you for putting up with me, for communicating with me, for helping me with boundaries, and making it what it is today, our marriage.
Thank you. I don't want to cry.
She's not going to cry. Once again, I'm Pastor Michael Watson, filling in for Pastor J.B. Whitfield. You've been listening to Tuesday Tips, and we'll see you next episode. Bye-bye.
Thank you for joining us on Tuesday Tips. We invite you to like, follow, share, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss an episode. To find out more information about JB Whitfield Ministries, visit us at jbwhitfield.com.